welcome to our first talk of the Connect and Develop series for 2024. I am Peter Papagiannis, Alumni Relations Manager here at the University of Auckland. It's great to have so many people online with us here today as we discuss this hot topic, making career decisions, the pressure to find your passion. Our speaker today is Sarah Liu, who holds a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Auckland. Joining Sarah today is our MC, Ludmila Barreau. She is a career development and employability consultant at the University of Auckland. And with a background in occupational therapy and education, Ludmila is a keen explorer of all things career development, coaching, and positive psychology. She views careers as ever-evolving self-expression projects, integrating core values and strengths to make a lasting impact. She encourages her clients to make decisions and take actions towards sustainable, rewarding, and value-based careers. A firm believer in lifelong learning and purposeful growth, she is currently pursuing a Master's of Education part-time. And as of 48 hours ago, she has completed her ICF coaching certification. On behalf of all of us here at the university, I'd like to say many thanks to Sarah and Ludmila for being a part of this series, and for everyone joining us. Make sure you take this opportunity to get your burning questions answered during today's talk. Over to you, Ludmila.
Thank you so much, Peter, and really excited to have completed my qualification and great to be here today, of course. Before I start introducing Sarah, I want to cover a few tips for participating in today's webinar. So the Q&A function at the bottom of your on-screen Zoom panel is now live. Please submit your questions at any time during the webinar, and we'll be monitoring them as we go. I also encourage you to upvote the questions that you find the most interesting, and these questions will move to the top of the Q&A screen. Towards the end of today's webinar, Sarah will be answering some of the highest rated questions. And now on to introducing today's speaker. Sarah Liu is the founder and managing director of the Dream Collective, an Asia-Pacific top 10 diversity and inclusion consultancy. The Dream Collective works with the world's leading multinational companies to attract and advance diverse talent into their workforce. Born in Taiwan, raised in New Zealand, studied and also surprisingly won professional eating competitions in Japan and built her career in Australia, Sarah is a true global citizen with deep market knowledge, business networks, and commercial understanding. Sarah has been recognized as a University of Auckland 40 under 40 business leader in 2021, awarded one of the most influential Asian Australians in 2019, and nominated as one of the 100 most influential women in Australia. She represented Australia in the G20 Young Entrepreneur Alliance for 3 consecutive years and has presented on Global Platform UN Women and at the Women in Tech Global Summit. And what is truly amazing to me is that just 45 minutes after this talk, Sarah will be addressing the audience of over 2,000 people at Forbes' annual Women's Summit. But luckily, we were her first choice, so we will be her first audience to address. Okay, over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Ludmila, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Indeed, I'm actually heading on stage in another sort of 30 minutes after this, and that's why I'm actually in the green room backstage, which is all very exciting. So when the team approached me about the topic around making career decisions and the pressure of finding your passion, I actually jumped to the opportunity straight away because that's actually a topic really close to my heart. So I've prepared a couple of thoughts from my personal journey to share with you all, which I'll share with you. And as Ludmila said, we will open for questions and very much treat this as a dialogue. So please do make sure you keep the questions coming, and we'll make sure that we go through them as time permits. So firstly, a little bit about me. Ludmila has actually shared, some great introduction already. But what I always love to share with people are images that actually feel really represent who I am. And this picture whilst a little bit pixelated on the screen, you can see that I was just having a great time. This was actually captured midway through a workshop that I was facilitating. And I was just having so much fun, really enjoying it. And I think this really is symbolic of just the energy, my work, and the deep joy that my work brings me. So as Ludmila said, I'm the founder and managing director for the Dream Collective, TDC Global. And it really started as my personal passion project with $3,000. I actually turned it into one of the world's leading diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm operating across the APAC region, working with clients like Google, Coca-Cola, Amazon Web Services, and Salesforce, etc., to help them accelerate their journey when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I come from a background in marketing and branding. And when I first kicked off my career in Australia after receiving a job offer, I had always been really ambitious and wanted to climb the corporate ladder very quickly, but was actually confronted by the lack of diversity in corporate Australia. And I decided to take it upon myself to solve the problem and to work with corporations to help them build better diversity and inclusion in their workforces. And now fast forward 10 years, TDC Global is now APAC's top 10 DEI consulting firm and making great impact with offices around Australia, Japan, Singapore, and other APAC regions. But fast forward 10 years, I'm still having as much fun working in the business and sharing my story and my journey. And today is one of the days that is actually bookended by speaking engagements, interacting with people, sharing my stories, and I'm still as excited as I was 10 years ago. And whenever I share that with people, people tell me, well, Sarah, of course that's the case because you're passionate about your work. You're working on your passion. So of course you can have fun. And of course, you'll be successful because it's your passion. And whenever people say that, the more they say that, the more it actually makes me question, what is passion anyway? So many people attribute my success and my joy in my work to because it's your passion. But what is that? And is that actually what I would also attribute my success and enjoyment to? The answer is not quite. So the first thing I wanted to share about is, if anything I've learned on my journey, is that it's actually not about passion. It's about professionalism. And what that means is my observation has always been that passion gets you started on the journey, but it's consistency that gets you to the finishing line. So if you think about the likes of Taylor Swift, Michael Jordan, they are passionate about their work, yes, but they actually have extraordinary work ethics, discipline, and professionalism. Because it doesn't matter what your passion is. Once you start doing it day in, day out, it becomes your profession. It becomes your job. And so professionalism is actually about showing up to work on the day you don't feel like showing up. No matter how passionate you are, what I can guarantee you is that that day will happen and that day will come. So it's actually what we do on days like that that would differentiate us from the rest. If you think about those incredible success stories, like the Taylor Swift, like the Michael Jordan, they're not just passionate about what they do, they're also extraordinary professionals when it comes to consistency and discipline in doing what they do. And the second thing is passion is not the secret to success. It's the work ethics, exposure to opportunities, the network you build that actually makes up the building blocks of your success. And I'll touch on this a little bit later as well and expand further. But very often I see people playing a disproportionate focus on the importance of passion. Everything is about, are you passionate about it? Or have you found your passion? It's actually not about that. It's actually what you do with that passion. People can have a lot of passion projects and can be passionate about a number of things, but do you have the work ethics to show up? Are you putting yourself in environments that gives you exposure to different opportunities? Are you intentional in fostering networks that can open up doors for you? They are the ingredient to success and not just passion. The second thing I want to touch on is that we all evolve, and so will your passion. Very often I hear people talk about passion as if though passion is this one size fits all, this static, never changing constant in your life. Once again, if there's anything I've learned myself, as well as observing successful people on their journey, is that you don't find your passion necessarily. You actually find aspect of your job that you're passionate about, and you cultivate that over time, and it's not static. The reality is that our passion, finding it and pursuing it, is both an exploration and evolution. I often compare it to taking yourself to like buffet breakfast. You will see a lot of different options out there, and you won't necessarily like all of them, and it's okay. It's actually about trial and error. It's about being open to the different options that's out there, exploring. And as we mature in our journey, as our life stage changes, your passion will also evolve, and that's completely okay. So actually embrace the reality that passion is not a constant static thing that will stay with you throughout the rest of your life. Be open to the possibility that it will evolve. And therefore, what does that mean in terms when it comes to finding our passion? So my counsel would be, rather than looking for a singular answer to passion, pay attention to what wakes you up in excitement, what keeps you up at night in a very good way, that you can't fall asleep because you just have so many ideas burning in your head that you want to pursue. What energizes you? What doesn't deplete you but energizes you? And what are some of the things that you will work on for free? Not meaning that we have to or we should work on our passion for free, which I'll touch on shortly as well. But what are some things that you love so much that doesn't matter how much you get paid for it, you will love doing it anyway? And also what feels so effortless to you? Passion, and we are operating in our passion zone and what we call zone of genius in our business, is that it should actually come fairly effortless to you. Of course, we put the hard work in to achieve mastery, so it goes beyond passion into the realm of mastery. But it should be something that is quite effortless to you and that you feel really good about. So we all evolve, so will your passion. And my suggestion is treating passion as something that's not static, and exploration and evolution. Embrace the reality that it will change. And therefore, rather than looking for passion as this like final destination, it's actually paying attention to a lot of other things, like what will energizes you and what feels effortless to you when you are doing it. And finally, I want to leave with you 3 very practical tips. When instead of asking ourselves, what am I passionate about? How do I find my passion? Ask yourself these 3 questions instead. Number 1 is, what are some of the key values and principles that you can be guided by? So I think, Ludmila and I was talking about when it comes to career choices, rather than focusing on passion, actually focusing on your value and what are some of your guiding principles are so important to you. And so what that means for me, for example, I've got 3 key principles and values that guides my career decision and just life decisions in general. And that's whatever it is that I do, I want to make money, I want to have fun, and I want to do good for the world. And you can see those values are the guiding principle that will be the constant. My passion at this point in time for the last 10 years and maybe for the next foreseeable few years, it will be in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, it might actually evolve into something else. I might actually shift my career pathway or take the business to a next level or actually pivot in other direction. But what would not change and what my guiding principle is that instead of asking myself, is this my passion? Know that passion can evolve, and it often does, but be guided by what are some of the key principles, because they are my values. And as long as I stay true to them, I will feel fulfillment, I will have enjoyment, and that will give me longevity in my pursuit of my career. The second question you should actually ask yourself instead is, what exposure to opportunities and environment do I have access to, and do I put myself in? Once again, people ask, how do I actually find passion and how do I pursue it? You need to be in the right environment first, right? And that's actually something I really thank the University of Auckland for, because it was actually in that environment, being exposed to different people and having access and opportunity to go on exchange programs in Japan, that really actually opened my eyes to what my passion could be and how I can be pursuing different pathways. So you're never going to find your passion when you are staying static in a very comfortable and predictable zone. The magic happens outside of your comfort zone. So I think if you are on the journey of looking for or pivoting career directions, ask yourself and actually challenge yourself. What environment are you putting yourself in? Are you constantly operating in your comfort zone, or are you intentionally creating exposure and access to opportunities that you don't typically have access to? Are you building networks into environments and industry and sectors that you don't know anything about? Because with curiosity, it comes with discovery. And when it comes to discovery, you're more likely to find whatever it is that you're looking for, and that will be helpful for you on the journey. And last but not least, what is the other intersection of passion, proficiency, and profit? Once again, I often hear people talk about passion in isolation of everything else, as if though passion is end all and be all, that once you find it, then everything will take care of itself. I'm sorry to be the one breaking it to you. It won't. Once again, it will get you started, but it simply will not take you to the finishing line. My recommendation for people who come to me for advice and mentorship, especially because I actually advise and counsel a lot of startup founders and entrepreneurs, very often they say, I'm doing this business because I'm passionate about it. The question I often ask them is, are you also exceptionally good at it, which is proficiency? And what is the size of opportunity, and how can you monetize that passion, which is the question of profit? Passion alone would not take you to the finishing line if it's not something that you're really good at, if it's not something that would actually make you money and actually have commercial opportunities in it. The reality is that you wouldn't feel very satisfied over time anyway. So rather than just focusing on passion, I encourage you to look at the intersection of passion. What are you passionate about? But what are you also good at? Where's your level of proficiency at? And profit. How can you monetize your passion and what you're good at to make sure that it gives you fulfillment, satisfaction, and commercial opportunities and economical empowerment over the long run? So with that, I want to hand it back to Ludmila for a continued discussion, because I'm so keen to actually hear your perspective on this as well. And we will open the floor for any questions, I believe. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share my perspective on this topic with you all.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for a wonderful talk. I was sitting here and smiling and nodding vigorously and humming along like, yes, yes. As a career consultant, I certainly hear a lot of these thoughts that passion is everything or nothing from students. So I'm very happy to have you here addressing some of these things. I just want to first encourage people to use the Q&A chat function. I see that there are quite a few questions there, and we would love to see more because it's such a wonderful hot topic. Just want to draw on a few things that you mentioned. I really loved how you managed to combine this feeling of joy and how you said, this picture symbolizes me. I was really having fun at work. And it certainly sounds and looks like you have fun with whatever you do, with also more mundane things, if I may say so, like consistency, just sticking to it. Not everything is going to be exciting all the time. And that also brought you further to the idea of mastery, which I guess ties in with the growth mindset, that passion and feeling like you love whatever it is you're doing is a wonderful starting point, but it is not going to turn you into a Taylor Swift or a Michael Jordan. And I think to follow up on that, I was actually wondering, in your career and all the exciting things that you do, how do you refrain from this either or thinking? So if you have a task that is a bit more mundane, that, let's put it this way, is not your favorite, how do you actually adopt a pragmatic approach that I've got to do this to be able to do what I want to do further?
Yes. Great question. And I think that also echoes a number of questions that we've received around feeling a bit sort of stuck in the job, lacking passion, and feeling that there's a lot of mundane tasks that's taking over the day-to-day. And how do we keep passion sort of alive in the midst of that? So there's a couple of things I would say to that. The first thing is there's always, doesn't matter what you do, there's always going to be elements of your job that you don't enjoy. And that's actually the reality of it. But what we can do is to actually minimize that and amplify the parts of our job that we like. I would say that if we're finding ourselves in a position where zero things about our job excite us, right? Not even 1 or 2 out of 10 things that excite us that we find joy in doing, then I'll say it's probably time to then consider, one, is this the right position to be in? Is that the right role? But also, could it be the right role, but not the right environment, right? But I think it's not about sort of seeing passion as this sort of green pasture on the opposite side of the road. Is actually finding elements in your current work that you are excited about, that you're passionate about, and actually dialing that up and pursuing that and nurturing that. And the second thing is embrace and accept the fact that there's going to be mundane tasks that, comes your way. But I think we're really fortunate in an age there's a lot of automation, technology, and generative AI that can actually help us with that. So I think also be smart in actually how you do your work as well, accept that they will be part of it. And for example, for me, as I grew the business, I love working on the business, but I actually personally don't love managing people. And that actually a lot of times is what I find that doesn't energize me. So I actually find people around me who are exceptional at that and finds great joy in that, in leading teams and building people to actually bring them together and form a team, and so that can be complemented. So I would say that it's really important that we accept that they will be the mundane, but finding ways to overcome that through either technology or people around us, but more importantly, finding ways to amplify what you actually do enjoy and nurture that consistently.
Thank you, Sarah. I loved what you said about looking at the elements of your work. And I do hear a lot from people like, oh, I don't like my job. And then when you start digging a bit deep and trying to find out what is the real challenge here for you, it turns out that it could be, I don't like this particular task that only occupies 15% of my time. The other thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking, the tasks that are mundane for me could be super exciting for someone else on the team and vice versa. I think that's also, working with people who might actually feel like, wow, I love managing people. Or on the contrary, someone else loves business development. So I think that's the power of the team as well.
Exactly.
Sarah, you mentioned the power of generative AI, and it's quite apt because the first question that we received at the very, very beginning of your talk was from someone who says, my 16-year-old son has wanted to become an architect for years, but now with the advent of AI, this looks like it could become obsolete. How can young people plan a career in a world where AI probably will make certain jobs obsolete? Such a topical question. What would be your take on it?
Yeah. Excellent question. I love that, and particularly relevant because in our work, in our line of work, and what we do at TDC Global, we work predominantly with technology companies, like AWS, like Google, Salesforce, etc. And so a couple of things I would say to that. One is particularly specific around architect. I think so much about architecture is actually in the creativity in the art and the design. It's actually there's so much more than what AI can actually replace. So architect or not, I would say that AI is a tool that complements, accelerates, and augment part of what we do as humans. It's meant to actually make us better and more efficient at our jobs. It wouldn't necessarily replace it, and most certainly wouldn't replace us right away. So I think if someone is already, sounds like, for years passionate about architecture, my encouragement would be absolutely to pursue it, especially with the young generation. Maybe he can actually create an AI tool that actually enables architects in the future. Who knows? So what I'm saying is that I don't think we should actually write any professions or any career off, because one, technology is actually accelerating at a pace that will actually affect every single job. So, by the same token, no job will stay exactly the same anyway. So no job is safe. It's not possible to predict what job will still be relevant and what will be obsolete, because simply technology advancement and AI disruption is outpacing any pace of change that we have been accustomed to in the past. So I'll say no job really is safe in that sense, right? So in that case, you should always think about how AI can complement your job, how it can actually enable you to do things better, faster, with better accuracy, or do more of it. It wouldn't necessarily make jobs obsolete as such. It would actually empower you. So focus on the things, once again, what's really unique to you. My sort of guidance would always be, if there's any components in your job that you do repetitively, that's the part that can be replaced by AI, and chances are AI can already be doing it. But what are some of the things that's not really repetitive, that requires very bespoke and tailored approach every single time you do that task? That's actually what AI cannot replace, and that's where human value can create the most impact. So that's actually the area I would encourage you to sort of focus on. So no job is safe in that sense. So everybody should be thinking about the power of AI and how we harness that in our respective roles.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think it's a big worry for parents thinking about the future of their children, students these days. But I loved what you said about redefining the nature of jobs, that no job is immune. All the jobs are going to be affected and redefined. I think, as you said, that AI is changing the world, it also brought me to this thought that you mentioned in your talk, that we evolve and change. And I guess as we evolve and the world evolves, it makes even less sense to talk about this idea of one definite passion. And on the topic of AI, just to do a little plug for Connect and Develop, you're here anyway, but a couple of months ago, there was a really, really cool talk on AI, another Connect and Develop webinar. I'm pretty sure it's recorded online, so people can go back to it. Sarah, there is a question that's been upvoted a large number of times. Ruth is wondering, how would you start building a network in a field that is new to you and that you have never worked in before?
Great question. My first thing would be actually LinkedIn. So I actually cannot speak more highly of LinkedIn. I think, once again, like, technology networks these days are opening up extraordinary access for us all. A really simple one would actually just be logging onto LinkedIn and actually find people in the field or occupying a role or an organization that you want to find more about, and actually connect with them and just ask them out for a coffee simply, and build your network from there. And attending events, meetups, and actually just putting yourself out there, right? And discovering things that you might not typically find yourself in. But I would say LinkedIn is actually an excellent avenue. I've actually very rarely had anyone sort of turn down an invite or a sort of coffee chat because I genuinely want to know about the industry. So I think if you are sort of genuine and are very specific in how you target people, and be specific about your ask to them, and invest in the time to actually look for people and connect with people in the industry that you want to know more about, the network can be built fairly effectively and fairly easily.
Thank you. And special thanks for mentioning the power of coffee. I talk about it, or coffee chats, the power of coffee as well. I talk a lot about informational interviews in all the careers work that we do at the Cedars. I guess a bit of a personal story. I was born in Ukraine, lived in Norway before coming to New Zealand. And when I arrived in New Zealand, I guess it's the same in Australia, I was really surprised at this fact that you can have a coffee with pretty much anyone. Maybe not exactly with the Prime Minister, but I guess it depends. How keen you are. I felt so liberating. Like I can go have a coffee with any professional, have a genuine conversation, get their input, get the information I need. I think it's fantastic and it's fun. Would you say it's fun?
100%. And a lot of times, my friend or people say, oh, I don't know how to, get connected to so-and-so or someone, from, a certain industry. And I said, have you asked? And they go, no, I haven't. And I said, why don't you ask? Simply just ask, right? So I think a lot of times it's not that people will say no, it's that we are too afraid to ask. So my encouragement and challenge is to just reach out to people, make the connection, and network will be built.
Absolutely. And sometimes people say not now rather than no. And it just means, hey, look, now is not a good time. I'll follow up in a month and let's have that coffee. So that's a very, very powerful tip. One of the key things that I love about New Zealand, I would say.
Yes.
Sarah, we've got another upvoted question, and you sort of started addressing that, but if you could just sort of give your wonderful succinct tips as you do, how do you make the leap from a safe and secure role to the thing that you're most passionate about? So if you've already, let's say you found that passion, you're ready to work, ready to be consistent, but you've got a job that is wonderful and secure, but is sort of holding you back. How do you make a leap?
So I'll make it very short and succinct. Number one is there's no magic way, just do it. But how do we make it easier to just do it? One is find a way to monetize it, make sure it still pays the bill because otherwise it's not sustainable. The second thing is actually time box it. And what I mean by time box is that when I left my corporate job to actually start TDC Global, I gave myself a year. And I said, I'll see how far I can take it within the 1 year and make a decision after that. During that year, we accelerated the business. It grew over like 386% or something crazy. And so that was it, right? But creating some time-bound measurement for yourself actually takes the pressure off. And also it provides a really clear measure of success and milestone. So I will encourage you to, one, not overlook the commercial financial component, and two, time box it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I think time boxing, as you said, it does take the pressure off, but it also adds a bit of pressure. You're like, hey, look, I've made this commitment to myself. So hopefully you'll be a bit more secure, but also a bit more committed to your goal. Thank you so much. And good luck to whoever asked that question and wants to follow their passion. Another question, and that's also about the practicalities. So a person is asking, what if I found my current job that is not fit for me, but this person is finding a new path or a new industry it's hard to get into without a relevant academic background? How do you start? Do you need to take a pay cut? What if you need a qualification? How would you answer that question?
Yeah, so I would say before you look to completely transition into something that will require significant investment, like study, like degrees, like qualification, actually just put some feelers out and actually dip your toes in first. And that could be, for example, maybe just do it on the side. It could be volunteering in that industry in capacity, but don't go all in first. And I say that because I see so many people a lot of times, they say, hey, I really want to do, let's say, counseling. They did this whole career change into counseling, got a certificate, and put in like years of study, only to come out of it, realize that it actually is very different to what they had expected. So what I would say is the learning there really is explore ways where you can get involved in that industry without necessarily making all that investment upfront yet, right? So in getting involved in some other capacity before making the investment and the jump.
Wonderful advice, Sarah. It's like you're a career consultant. Gosh, you're like taking my job. That's exactly what we tell people. You need to reality test and test drive the job. People go to a shop. I'm not going to name any brands, not to promote anyone. And even to buy a relatively cheap T-shirt, they have to sort of try that on and see if it looks great, if the color is right. And then people go and invest a lot of thousands of dollars into a degree, and they don't know what the job feels like, looks like in reality. It's more like, this idea of passion, aspiration. So I think it's a really wonderful piece of advice. I've got a question from someone that sounds just like me. It's like my alter ego is asking this. I'm passionate about a lot of things, and I'm just not sure what I'm actually good at that would actually make money. How do I find this out? Great. Whoever's done that, I feel for you.
So that's an excellent question, because I really like it, because you're starting to think about the practicality of things. So my immediate response to that, you're never going to find that out if you don't do it. So again, my encouragement is always to find ways where you can test drive that. So, for example, one of my friends said, I'm really passionate about actually sort of, wedding dresses. And she actually took out a loan and started a wedding dress shop, only to realize that she's not actually very good at marketing and everything that comes with having to make the business a success, and actually ended up not being very fulfilled at all. And so my encouragement to that, again, is instead of jumping right into something, think about how you can maybe create a side hustle from your passion project. That way, you will understand what is the size of opportunity, how much sort of margin can you make, and the return on investment opportunity. And you can start assessing, and you actually start have data points to make your decisions from. So very often what I find is that people are trying very hard to make decisions when they don't have the data. So do some data collection before you make important decisions, right? So what I would encourage you to do that in that space is, if you are already clear about what your passion are, finding some ways to test drive that through side hustle, through just creating something small. And now with technology again and online tools, the barrier to entry into a lot of industry have lowered. Or even simply finding and speaking to people who have managed to monetize their passion or are operating in the similar field that you want to get into, and actually get data point, get advice, and get really practical feedback from them on how you can make that work.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And I was taking notes for this one. I was like, side hustle, data points. Definitely something to think about. Yes, like starting small and really test driving, like creating, what do you call it, the minimum viable product.
Yes.
And then seeing how that goes. We've got speaking of data, we've got somebody who wants you to measure your fun, Sarah. Claire is asking, how often do you find fun at work? Daily, weekly? So Sarah, what's your fun frequency?
Interesting. So I would say it fluctuates, but I would say every week to every fortnight, I would be having some kind of fun. If I'm not having fun, I'll actually look for ways to create fun with the team or in my environment with clients and in the projects that I'm involved in. So I would say that for me personally, it's like weekly to fortnightly. But when I'm feeling like, I'm going through work and without having fun, look for ways to create it yourself.
Wonderful. And how do you do that? Teach us how do you create fun in your work?
And for me, sometimes it doesn't have to be anything major. So for example, it can be actually posting a question in our team Slack channel and getting some really obscure questions and getting people to send in their answer for it. Sometimes we have, because we are a fairly remote and virtual team, that's very globally dispersed. So sometimes we then do competition around memes. So everybody sends like a meme, into the Slack channel for a bit of fun. Or even when I am in conversations like this, I don't take myself too seriously when I'm about to go on the stage for the Forbes Women Summit. I will, have fun. I will share a couple of jokes. I'll share with people my eating competition days, experience. And when people are having fun, it opens people up and they end up sharing really exciting and really obscure stories with me too. And then we have fun. So it's actually really, again, finding joy and creating moments of happiness and fun in your day-to-day.
Thanks so much for summarizing that beautifully. Passion, it's not only about the actual work tasks you're doing, but also the relationships that you're creating at work. Sarah, in about the next 2-3 minutes, I've got one final question for you. Since you are the master of good advice and sort of bullet pointed advice, what would you say on how can we help our younger generations, for example, teenagers and kids, develop their passion? How could we identify that it is their genuine passion? I'm very, very invested in this question. I've got a daughter who's almost 4, and someone else is clearly. What would be your take on this?
Right. So my first tip and the most important thing, and I mentioned this previously, is put them in environments where they can have access and exposure to as many opportunities as possible. I really believe that it's actually all about access. So the simple way to think about it is that, are you actually taking them to a buffet, or are you just handing them a menu with 3 options on there? And the more exposure they get, the sharper they're gonna get around what makes them passionate, but also what they are not passionate about. And I want to say and emphasize that knowing what doesn't work for you is equally, if not more important than knowing what works for you. So actually, even I think sometimes parents would say, we got the kids to learn this and that, and found out that they don't like it one bit. And I'm like, that's actually great, because it's a discovery, right? And then every discovery takes you closer to finding out what that is for you. So I think one, understand that, in order to make discovery and find anything that's meaningful, you need exposure. So how are you setting them up for success? How are we creating environments where they get access to as many options as available? And that's why I'm personally so passionate about equity, because it's about creating equal access to all, because I really believe that actually determines your level of success in the future. So take them to a buffet breakfast, not just a la carte, and know that it will change. So it's perfectly okay if for 10 years they're passionate about this, but then starting to evolve into something else, that's totally fine. And knowing what they don't want is equally important.
Wonderful. I'm going to take my daughter to the buffet, metaphorically and literally, and I'm going to do that to myself, because I'm realizing how important it is to adults. Thank you so much, Sarah, and good luck with your presentation. You've done the best one for today. Say hi to Forbes. Thank you to everyone for your wonderful questions and attention and participation. It's been a real pleasure being here and talking about this wonderful topic. So today was talk 1 of our 2024 series, and we've got 3 more to go. Next up on the 14th of May, we have HR star Dr. Susan Chen, who will be talking about being curious, another wonderful skill, and why it is so critical and important. Please visit the Alumni and Friends website to view upcoming Connect and Develop events and to register. And don't forget to forward the link to your friends, your colleagues, and if you think that would be of value and of relevance to them. We'll be sending out a survey to get your feedback, so please look out for that in your inbox. Thank you again for joining us today.